Good morning and welcome to Coffee with Connie. I'm Connie Fuksa with Foote Title Group, where we protect your home ownership. How's everybody doing today? This is Tuesday. Hopefully you guys are having an awesome start to your day. I know I'm a little bit early today, but we have lots going on today and I wanted to get out there and make sure that we got some messages to you. So earlier we've been talking about the seller side of the transaction and some of the things that could affect that and some things that maybe you need to know if you're selling a piece of property. And so I wanted to continue that and talk about, if I'm the seller and I've signed a contract, what are some things that I need to do? What needs to happen? What do I need to know as the seller? Now, first of all, let me say there are lots of good real estate professionals out there, and if you're working with a real estate professional that is very knowledgeable in what they're doing, they're going to guide you through all of this. And my purpose is not to take the place of that, but is to maybe spur a question, supplement something, maybe allow you a thought that maybe you didn't think about. So first of all, thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate your time. Hey there, Pam. Hi, Phil. Hey, Sherry. How are you today? Thank you guys for tuning in. And if you find what we talk about valuable, please share it with those that you know, because there's always going to be somebody out there that maybe has a question that maybe they didn't even realize they had, or maybe they don't know who to turn to. So they would definitely could turn to you, particularly if you're a real estate professional. They may want to ask you that question and get some more information, and it may help you guide them in the right direction, and you could help them with other things. So please do share if you find what we're talking about valuable. So if you're thinking about selling your house and you've put it on the market and you're working with a real estate professional, as I said, I don't have a real estate license, but we have been doing home closings for over 30 years and have seen a lot of different things. And so we just try to bring up maybe some things that might spur a question or answer a question for you, or at least get you thinking in the right direction about a question. So today I want to talk a little bit more about the seller side of things. And so if you're selling a piece of property, after you've signed a contract, a purchaser has come in and made an offer on your home, you've decided that was a good offer and that you wanted to accept that offer. Now what do? Now what has to happen? So in this case, the buyer has most of the responsibilities to take care of to get you to closing. But there's going to be some things that need to happen. So you're going to need to make sure that whoever's doing the closing has all of your pertinent contact information. And typically that should happen through the realtor. But the closing company is going to be contacting you about some things that need to be taken care of, like any loans or liens or mortgages or anyone you owe anything to that may be secured by that property. The company that's doing the closing is going to need all of that contact information. So they're not only going to need who you make those payments to, but how to get in touch with them, and then any loan numbers or information that you have that will identify when that closing company calls that lien holder to get a payoff loan information. And the reason that the closing company needs that information is because since that loan is secured against that property, it must be paid off and it must be released from the title of that property. So in order to do that, we need to get from you the contact information, who you make the payments to, and any loan information about that loan, so that we can make sure that we're paying off the proper loan and that we're getting the information from that loan company to get that loan paid off and taken care of and released from the property. So say, for example, you have a mortgage, you took that mortgage out when you purchased the property. That loan may have been sold to someone else. And so we may do a search on the title of that property, but it may not show who the loan holder is now. So we're going to need from you who that mortgage company is, your loan number, and more than likely your social security number. And we would contact you or have you contact us directly by phone to get that information, because we all know that going through email services for that kind of thing isn't the safest way to do that. So we would contact you directly, or would ask that you contact us directly to get that information, because the lender is going to require us have that in order to get that proper loan payoff information. Now, we talked last week a little bit about subsequent loans, like maybe you took out a second mortgage because you wanted to buy a car, and you wanted to do it with the equity you had in your home. Or maybe you took out a home equity loan to pay off some debt that you had. Maybe you had some high credit card bills from medical expenses, or maybe you wanted some cash to put one of your children through college, or maybe you took out an equity line to purchase a car or a boat or some other things that you might want, maybe some furniture. Those are things that are secured against the ownership of the property. So the title company or the company that's doing your closing is going to need to know that contact information as well. Maybe you have a lien that needs to be paid off. Maybe you fell behind in some property taxes, income taxes, and you have a lien that is going to show up on the title of the property. That has to be paid off if you owe IRS or the state of Maryland or the state of Virginia or whatever state that happens to be. And again, let me bring up, as I usually try to, all of this information we're talking about today on this broadcast is true for any state in the United States. So this isn't just specific to areas we do closings. Sometimes things we talk about are, this particular topic is not. So if you're tuning in from another area, these are things that the company doing your closing would need to know as well. So if you owe someone that you think is secured against your property, that is going to need to be paid off and released. So whoever's doing that closing, whoever the buyer selected to do that closing, is going to need to know that contact information and any information about that loan or that lien, because it has to be paid off and released from the property. So have all of that information, all those ducks in a row. The other thing that you really want to make sure you know is if someone who is in that ownership. So when I say that, let's say when you purchased your property, you purchased a townhouse when you were first out of college and you needed co-signers and your parents signed off on that. Let's say that your parents aren't local, but they're still in the ownership of the property, but they've never paid anything or had to do anything for you on that property. Your parents are going to need to sign off on that paperwork. Now, there's several different ways that that can be done. A power of attorney can be done to have them sign off. The documents can actually be sent to them where they live if they're not local, or they can actually come to closing. But your parents are going to need to sign off on the contract. They're going to need to sign off on the deed transferring the ownership and any other seller's documents. And that's going to need to happen in order for the closing to happen. Now, if a power of attorney is going to be used, a power of attorney needs to be prepared in advance, and it needs to be reviewed by the company doing the closing to make sure that it meets all of the requirements for the state that that property is located in. So it may be something that takes a little advanced preparation, and as I said before, your real estate professional can guide you through that, but you want to make sure that that is something you're addressing with the company doing the closing so that that isn't a hiccup when you get to closing. Sometimes we've seen people prepare a power of attorney on their own and just bring it to closing, and unfortunately it doesn't meet all the requirements, and then we have trouble locating or getting the people that signed that power of attorney nailed down. So in that scenario, let's say that your parents signed off on that power of attorney, you have to bring that original power of attorney to closing, or you can drop it off at the company who's doing the closing beforehand so that they can hold on to it. That original power of attorney is going to have to be recorded in the land records with all of the documents after the closing. Now you can get the original power of attorney back once it's recorded in the land records. Same is true. Let's say, for example, you have a ex-spouse that you no longer are married to. Obviously, if they're an ex, I guess that was kind of silly. But if you own a piece of property with an ex, and that ex is no longer in the area, and they never signed off on the deed transferring the ownership, that ex is going to have to sign off on this documentation, or they're going to have to sign off on sign a power of attorney giving someone else the right to sign on their behalf. Or we can get the deed signed by them in advance to get that taken care of, but they're going to have to sign off on it. Just because you have divorce papers that say you own the property, the deed is the only thing that can transfer that ownership, so you can't not have that person involved. So if anyone is on the ownership of that property that is not any longer involved in the situation, we need to address that before you get to closing. So that's something else you need to be thinking about, whether it's through a power of attorney, if we send the documents to somewhere where they're located in advance. These things are things that we need to discuss so we can get that resolved for you in advance. And the other thing that, another scenario that I really want you to think about is, as we're talking about people being on the ownership that maybe aren't available anymore, another serious factor is if someone passed away that was on the ownership. So we're going to need some documentation documenting that that person has passed. And so we can properly document that going forward through the ownership chain of title. And so we're going to need a death certificate, an original a death certificate, preferably before closing, so that we can address it and make sure we have everything, all the pieces together, so when closing happens we don't have all that confusion. So if anyone was on the ownership of that property that can't be at that closing, we need to talk about that. So payoff information for any loans that you have on the property, and any documentation for anyone that isn't able to be at that closing. Two very important pieces that you need to grab and get together. Making sure that the people that are involved in that closing can actually be at the closing at the specified time and day that is designed, that everybody has agreed upon. Those are important things. There's some other things that could happen. Maybe if there's some certifications that were agreed to in the contract that you're responsible for, that you're going to need to take care of those to make sure that there isn't any problems with the home. And otherwise, the rest of those pieces are pretty much going to fall into place. Your real estate professional is going to guide you in the direction that needs to happen. And the company doing the closing is going to ask you any questions that maybe they have when they do the search on the property, just to resolve any concerns or questions at that point. But as the seller, you really just need to make sure you have those pieces together, and then you just sit back and let the buyer do their work with their lender to get everything all together, and show up at the date and time you're supposed to sign that paperwork, give the keys, and get your check. So, and that I will say about the check, in some states you get it when you're sitting there closing, in some states you get it after documents are recorded. It just depends on what the rules are for that particular area. So that varies in different jurisdictions. And as a seller, your jobs aren't too difficult as long as you have all that paperwork together. So if you have any questions, certainly reach out to me and let me know if there's anything we can help you, maybe guide you with. We don't know all of the answers as far as the real estate process is concerned, because we aren't licensed real estate professionals, but we work with a lot of really good professionals, some of which happen to be viewing today. Hey Lisa, how are you? Thanks for tuning in. Hey Lee, how are you today? And so if there's any questions that you have, we can either help you get those questions answered, we can direct you to some people that can potentially answer those questions for you. There's also lots of information on our website, FooteTitleGroup.com. There's a seller's link. If you click on that seller's link and click on resources, there's a home seller's guide, which will give you some information. There's also lots of other resources on there that could help you out. The other thing I wanted to point out is every month we try to provide you with new content information that could help you through the home buying or home selling process. Because my word for the year is execute, it is very important for me to execute by providing you more content. So go on our website, about halfway down in the middle, there's a circle that says what's new. Click on that. Right now we have the 10 most frequently asked things for first-time home buyers that they need to know. So that's a really good piece of content. We are, this month, it's Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Month. So for every closing that we're doing, we're going to be donating $50 towards cystic fibrosis. And so if you're doing a closing with us, you can be aware that that money is going towards that. One of our really good partners that we do a lot of work with, his daughter has cystic fibrosis and asked us to do this, and so this is really important to us. So we're donating $50 a month for every closing in May to cystic fibrosis at the end of the month. So hopefully you're doing a closing with us. If not, we need to be doing your closing so we can help them out. And if there's anything I can help you with, please reach out to me. You can either do it through this broadcast, you can message me individually, you can text me or email me, or any of our team members that are located at FooteTitleGroup.com. They can help you with any questions you have. I really appreciate you taking the time to tune in. It's very important for me to help you answer questions or bring you information that hopefully can answer questions for you. And I really look forward to talking to you guys several times during the week. I hope you're having an awesome day. Make it successful, and I look forward to talking to you again really soon. I'm Connie Fuksa with Foote Title Group, where we protect your home ownership. Thanks for tuning in to Coffee with Connie. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.